Hey everybody, and welcome back to Art à la Carte. In today's video, we're going to be talking about backgrounds, specifically how to create a forest background. Now, for many of us, when we start our artistic journey as young artists, we do the typical draw the little ground line and then everything comes up from that line, like the trees, the flowers, the house, the stick figure, they're all on that line. And then as we progress in our artistic journey, we gain skills and a little bit of knowledge. We learn about placement and how to make things look like they have a little bit of depth. By understanding how to use backgrounds and foregrounds and all the grounds in between can really help us to create a picture with depth. Now, if at the end of this video you need a little bit more specific information about the foreground background thing, I did a video a while ago where I went into detail about that. I'll leave a link to that right up here so you can check that out. But for this video specifically, we're going to be doing a forest picture. Now, if you have never drawn before and you're wanting to learn how to draw, this is a great piece to practice with. Or if you're an artist that has been drawing for a while, but maybe you're wanting to sharpen those skills on background drawings, I encourage you to hang around. While preparing for this class, I actually did several trial runs from this and got some pretty fun ideas. And my finished piece, which I did in markers and colored pencils, turned out really cool. But before I get to that video, I want to walk you through the steps of this process so that while I'm doing it with the finished piece, you can kind of pick those out. Knowing what to look for in art can really help us break down different pieces that we like to see how that person created it and really help us when we try to create our own pieces. So this process has a couple of different components. And the first one is layers. If you look at the drawing that I've done so far, there's the ground, there's the trees, some grass, it's all on one layer. It's kind of flat. Even with a little path in it, it's still flat. But if you can think of that as one layer, and we're going to continue to build layers behind it, it's going to make depth. Think of a stage at a theater, and they have all the different props that come in different parts, and they have, like, you know, the forests, and they have the house and windows, and then the furniture and things like that. They're all different layers that come from the back of the stage to the front of the stage. So think about that when you're creating your drawing. I generally start with one of my front layers first and then work backwards. As I put a new layer behind it, I'm going to change its placement. Because I'm working on a two-dimensional surface, paper, but I want to make it look three-dimensional, I'm going to create each layer slightly higher on the paper. The higher you go up on the paper, the farther back it's going to look. Another element that helps with this is sizing. So as things get farther away, they're going to get smaller. If you want to create a layer depth that covers a great distance, then you're going to have a pretty substantial sizing. So like if I want a tree that's close to me, but then I want to show a tree that maybe is a mile away, that tree that's a mile away is going to be much tinier than the tree that's right next to me. In this forest piece, I don't want to have a great distance. I want it to look like a dense, thick forest. So while my layers are moving up on the page, the size of my trees are only going to change slightly. This brings us to the next point, which is overlapping, when one object slightly covers up another object. So don't be afraid to draw your trees crossing behind or in front of each other. By using overlapping, it helps to add connection and helps everything to look like it's part of a whole. That brings us to point number 3, which is to block things out before you start going into the detail. Now, this first layer that I already started going in with the detail because I love detail. And it's really hard sometimes for me to wait to get everything in the way I want it before I start jumping into the detail. But let me tell you, when you block things out, it helps you to see the picture overall and gives you a chance to move things around. Believe me, it's so much easier to erase 2 lines of a blocked out tree and move it over a little bit to help balance out your picture than it is to erase an entirely shaded in tree with all the detailed branches and a squirrel and an owl in it and everything, and it was the best owl you ever drew and now you have to erase it. So before you get into that detail and have to lose that beautiful owl, just block those trees out. So you can see I'm just very carefully putting in some just basic lines to let me know where things are. Later on, I'll get into the detail and the textures and all that fun stuff. Point number 4, variety. You're going to notice that out of all the trees in my forest, that not 2 of them look exactly the same. Try not to get that cookie cutter tree, especially with a forest. Anything that's going to be organic is going to have its own natural curve and wave to something. That's why I don't draw a lot of bridges and cars, because everything has to be so precise. But if I want to create something that's natural, organic, I want things to be a little bit different. So some trees are older, so I'm going to draw them kind of a bigger, thicker tree, but I'm also going to put some young saplings in there, so they're going to be a thinner, twiggier tree. On a side note, if you guys would like a tutorial video on drawing trees, let me know in the comment section below. That'd be something you'd be interested in, and specifically, what type of tree would you like to learn? The last point to take a peek at is your contrast. So contrast means the difference between your lightest lights and your darkest darks. There's a ton of things to talk about with contrast, shading, shadowing, highlighting, and all this, but if you can just remember this one rule, it will help you out so much. And that is, the darker you color something, generally, the farther back it pushes it, and the lighter something is, the closer it brings it. So you can really use that to help create depth in your drawings. As I begin to add color to this picture, you'll notice that I start off with a lighter color, green and brown for the trees, but as I move back on my layers, I'm darkening those colors a little bit each time so that it progressively gets darker and darker and darker, which pushes my forest farther and farther back. Now, that's just the rule of thumb. Art is all about changing rules up, so you will notice that my final piece, I don't do that. It's the trees are getting darker, but the far background is light. And that's something fun with forests if you want to make the viewer feel like they're in the forest trying to come out of the forest. You can make that background really light and shiny, and it's drawing the viewer through the forest and out. So you can kind of see the difference between this one and my final piece. Speaking of final pieces, let's move on to the actual creation of my traditional art. I'm using my Cool Erase color pencil because it's erasable and I like it. I'm also using a mixed media paper, and then I've decided to do the coloring in Copic markers with a little bit of color pencils. Now, I'll talk a little bit more about that when I get to the coloring part. I wasn't positive that Copic markers were going to be the best coloring for this piece, but again, I'll talk about that in a little bit. Though because I had practiced this sketch up so many times before this finished piece, the actual sketching the trees I was really comfortable with, because this whole design idea was for a class that I taught at my local art museum. And I have to tell you that I've been making YouTube videos for quite a few years, but I actually teach live art classes, you know, go to places and people come. I've been doing that for almost 20 years now. One wouldn't think there would be this big of a difference, but there really is such a difference between teaching a physical class where I'm with people as opposed to teaching in front of a camera. I mean, not that one is better than the other. I mean, the pluses of teaching a video class is that if I say something stupid, I can edit that part out. Whereas if I'm teaching it live, whatever comes out of my mouth is going to come out of my mouth. So sometimes I don't quite make sense and I go, oh. I find that teaching a class in front of students, I can judge instantly how I need to alter the way I teach. When I teach on a video, I have to wait until comments start coming in and I can read your guys' responses to find out if I truly explained things well enough, or if there was something that I didn't quite explain, or if there's things that, or if there's questions that you guys had that I didn't cover. After I read those comments, then I can determine if there's enough interest to make a follow-up video or a video on a different topic based on those comments. Whereas with a real live class, students can stop me right in the middle of the class, ask those questions, I can address it, I can look at their art and be able to give them, you know, real-time help, you know, change this or you can do that, or, oh, I can see what's going on here. And so it's a lot more. I love the interaction. Not that I don't love the YouTube. Both have such a great give and take. I totally understand that not everybody has the ability to take a live class, whether you have a community college that offers classes or like in my town, we have the museum. I mean, back in my day, we didn't even have the YouTube. Back when I was a kid, there was none of this interwebs. We had to go to the library and check out one of the 5 art books out there. Yeah, back in my day, it was a little bit more challenging. In fact, the only way to really grow back when I was a kid was to find some physical classes. I think it's amazing that there's so many options to learn, whether it is through classes or videos or books. And that's why I'm so excited about today's sponsor, who is Skillshare. Now, some of you may know that Skillshare is an online learning community which has thousands of videos ranging on so many different topics, whether it's art or marketing, film, photography, animation. It's amazing. It's a great place for curious and creative people to increase their knowledge and help them on their creative journey. I've been a member of Skillshare for over a year now, I think almost 2 years now, and I absolutely love using the services that they offer, whether it's to learn about a new skill that I have no knowledge of, like web development or marketing, or I want to sharpen a skill I already am comfortable with, like illustrations or watercolor. And with an annual membership, it works out to be less than $10 a month. What I appreciate about them is I have a very busy and erratic schedule. Trying to fit my schedule into an actual class setting is really challenging. With Skillshare, I can choose what classes I want to take and take them at my own pace. I can go through these classes as fast or as slow as I want to. A class that I'm currently enjoying is one by Camille Derego, who I first discovered her artwork in my local bookstore. So when I saw that she had Skillshare classes, like, what? It's really fun to see new art instructors coming on Skillshare, people that I have admired in the art world now offering to share their knowledge and experience with us through classes is pretty fantastic. I'm working through her class on imaginative drawing and developing art characters. And you guys know I love character development, and she has such an amazing style and a way of capturing characters that I want all of her knowledge in my head. Get in my head. But what I also enjoy about Skillshare classes is that, like many other video platforms, you can watch the videos, but there's also class projects. Each class generally has a project, a focused goal that you're working towards. And when you finish it, there is a gallery, a student gallery, that you can post your pictures or works in progress to let other students who are taking the class see it. You can check out their artwork. Everyone's able to comment and talk about it. If you have a question, the instructors of the classes are available to answer any questions you have. So it's like the best of both worlds. It's an online class that you can take at your own time, but it also has the elements of going to an actual classroom setting. It fills my need to have some social artistic interaction, but also allows me to be the introvert that I enjoy being. If you'd like to try out Skillshare for yourself, I got a deal for you. The lovely people at Skillshare have once again given us a code that will give you your first 2 months for free. So in the description box below, you'll find a link. Hit that link. It'll take you right there. Super easy to sign up for your membership. And then you can start binge watching all the classes. And if you find one that you really, really like, would you let me know in the comment section below? Because once I finish this one, I'll be ready to take a new class, and I'd love to know your recommendations. Anyway, there's one more thing I want to talk about with the creation of this piece, and that's I'm not exactly certain how I want to explain it, because it's kind of contradicting itself. And that is to know when you're working on a piece, to know when it is going to be a finished piece and to push on through and keep working on it, and to know when it is a stepping stone in the creation of this. So for this piece here, like I said earlier, this was for a class I taught, and I had done several sketches, first of just trees to get my tree skills up, and then practicing the layout. So probably 5 or 6 actual sketches for this piece, whether they took 5 minutes or an hour to sketch out. But all of those different pieces, while not finished, are adding up to being this finished piece. A lot of times when we work on something and it doesn't turn out, we get frustrated and we think, oh, I failed, I ruined it. But don't think about it as a failure or ruining your piece. Think about it as part of the foundation for your finished piece, because you're learning from that, you're gaining knowledge from that, and it's going to help you on your next time around. But on the flip side with that, don't be quick to give up on a piece. So as I said earlier, the sketching part of this was a breeze because I had done so many SketchUps for this that I really knew the layout that I wanted for my drawing. But when it got to the coloring part, that's where it was a little bit challenging, because I wanted to do in Copic markers, and I discovered rather quickly once I started laying down the Copic marker coloring that I wasn't getting the technique or the style or the look that I envisioned in my head. Because I didn't want the whole thing outlined, and Copic markers work really well if you're outlining something, but my skill with Copic markers isn't as great if I'm trying to do a realistic picture. And so several times through this piece, I was like, yeah, this is gonna be another stepping stone. I have to redo this again. Maybe we'll try it in watercolor or something like that. But I loved the layout, how I got everything drawn in here, and I wasn't ready to give up on it. I just kept pushing it, and it actually turned out. You never know. You can be at a place in your picture where you just want to give up, and you just don't know if one or two more swipes of the pencil or the marker or a pen is going to change it from being to being, oh, there it is. Because it was almost instant. Like, there was just this point in the drawing that it went from being, yeah, it's not working, to being, yes, it is working. And I can see it coming together. What it was, the element that I needed to add to it was just time. I needed to put a lot of time to really build up my layers slowly and to get my contrasts in there. So yeah, it just took more time than I thought it was going to be. Hence the reason why this video is so sped up. Now, I know there might be some of you who want to see this video a little bit slower or maybe even real time. Again, it's like 2.5 hours long of video recording. If that's something that you would be interested in seeing, I think I'm going to post the full video in realish time. At any level on my Patreon page will be able to access this video. So if that's something that you're interested in, I'm just letting you know that that's where it is. But in the end, it turned out great. I'm even thinking about making prints of this piece. I haven't done a piece for a while that I have wanted to make a print of. So I'm excited to have finished this. I'm so excited. Hopefully you have just as much fun creating your own forest picture. If you do, make sure to share it with me on my social media. I'll leave links to those in the description box below, along with the link that Skillshare gave to get your first 2 months for free. Definitely make use of that. Create all of the arts. And as always, God bless you guys. Thanks for hanging out with me. Keep being creative, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.